Hey guys, welcome to another Graphic Sauce Media video. Today I am so excited. We are wrapping up our new PC build series. This is the wrap up, and we're going to talk about this guy right here. Going to go through the build process a little bit with you, what our likes, our dislikes, and some upgrade paths and things like that, and just all around final thoughts. So let's get it. So if this is the first video in the series that you guys are catching, we've actually done a three-part series where the first part we actually went over the PC parts that we picked to go into the system. I did a little bit of comparison about what we're currently using on the old system, and just kind of went out the thought process for everything and kind of went over every piece in the build. The second video was the actual PC build. This was more or less a montage of my dad and I putting the PC together. This is the first PC that I built, so it was important to me that I document it and really kind of captured the moments and everything like that of us putting it together. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about that later on in this video. Alright, so before we get started, I kind of wanted to go over a few quick questions, kind of like rapid fire, just to get everybody on the same page for this video itself. So first off, there isn't going to be any like benchmarking or any type of like testing of the system with the different programs and things like that. I'm not a professional, I'm not an expert by any means. Like, this is literally my first PC that I built, and I didn't even do it by myself. I had help. So I don't think it's right for me to actually go down that path. That's not what this video is really about. This video is really about my process and my experience building a PC, and kind of give you some examples of how I'm using it, and kind of some results that I'm seeing that aren't as technical as how many frames per second are you getting, how hot does the PC run, and things like that. That's not necessary in this type of video. There's plenty of videos out there with similar hardware. Find those types of videos out there. This is more or less kind of like a beginner's type of experience and explaining how I felt the whole thing went, as well as how it's working after the build's been complete. So I guess the first thing, if you hadn't seen the past two videos, why did I build a PC? Well, to be quite honest with you, my previous rig just couldn't handle the video editing that I was throwing at it. Simple jump cuts, not a lot of fancy transitions, very little levels of audio and things like that. I'm not talking like 15 levels of audio or anything like that. Definitely no drone footage. The stability on that machine was it was diminishing very, very quickly with what I was starting to throw at it. So I'm a wedding filmmaker, and having to edit large files is something that is required for this business. I right now only edit 1080p because of the restrictions of the computer that I was on, and obviously it couldn't handle that. I experienced frequent crashing, slow playback. I couldn't edit any type of drone footage from my Mavic Pro. Things like that kind of really held me back with what I could creatively make and do with the stuff that I was actually filming. So that was really kind of the main purpose of this machine, was to build something that I could grow with, that I can kind of step forward from the 1080p into 4K, and really kind of work on my craft and have a machine that could follow along with me. The other part of this build was to get back into PC gaming. I haven't done any gaming on the PC since Diablo 3, so it's been a long time. Actually, let's find out how old is Diablo 3? When was Diablo 3 released?
Diablo III's initial release date is May 15th, 2012.
So there you have it, May 15th, 2012. This game is approaching 8 years old. It has been 8 years since I've done any type of gaming on a PC. So really, the gaming aspect of it was kind of a side thought, a bullet point. The main reason for this system is to edit videos on, whether that's YouTube videos, wedding film videos, personal videos, anything like that. Stuff, edit rig right here. Edit rig. Say hello. But what I really wanted to focus on was bridging that gap from 1080p to 4K, and obviously there's a stepping stone in there at 1440, and that's kind of where we're looking to go. So how long did the PC take to build, and what was the build process like? And I want to preface this. I can't preface this enough by saying I've never built a PC before. This was a huge daunting task. That's why I brought in my dad, who's built PCs before. He's an electrical engineer, and he knows a thing or two about building computers. So I wanted to have an expert on site with me while I built. Nevertheless, it was a daunting task, and I wanted to come away with that knowledge to build a PC and feel comfortable doing it by myself. So, like I said, I brought my dad in, we had some fun, we built the system. As far as timing-wise goes, it took us about 7 hours to build from start to finish. We started about noon and finished about 7 p.m. There was a couple breaks in there for like lunch and dinner and things like that. But for the most part, it was about a 7-hour build. And that's partially my fault. And this kind of goes back to like what I was talking about before with the montage for the last video in the series, where originally the idea was to actually have a full-blown, this is how we built this PC, including audio from multiple angles, and we had that all set up, right? We had the main camera, second camera, down. If I had planned out the system and had the actual components, I would have loved to have a top-down shot. That's something that we can look for in the future. But we worked with what we had, and one of the downfalls and one of the things that I would do different is I would have opened this stuff up and did kind of like a dry run ahead of time, at least cracked open some of the manuals and kind of familiarized myself with the different components and like how they interacted with each other, because that was ultimately what was the downfall of the second video in the series, what took it from this elaborate build to a montage. So one of the things that I hear all the time is building a PC is like building a Lego set. And for the most part, that would be correct, right? There's only so many places a GPU can be pushed into this motherboard. There's so many places RAM sticks can go in. They only can go in one way. So for the most part, yeah, that is correct. But I think one of the things that's kind of gets overlooked is like the connecting everything together. Making sure you're putting the pins together on your motherboard correctly and which ones go where and things, that aspect of it. The other part is all the different configurations that you can run into, right? Do you want the radiator in the front, or do you want the radiator at the top? Do you want a push, or do you want a pull, set up with the fans on the radiator? Where are you going to route the cables from? And once you get to the back side of the computer, how are you going to cable manage everything together? And, one of the things that probably ate up the most time is figuring all that out. I could easily tell you that plugging in the CPU, plugging in the water block, the GPU, and then the RAM, that didn't take no time at all. It was really trying to configure up where we wanted everything to go and how we were going to route stuff. That was the hard part. And I think if I had to do it all over again, I honestly would probably build the system once, just so that I'm familiar with, okay, this is the best route for this case, this is the best route for these two cables that come from the back center, up here, your 8-pin connector, that's gonna, it'll fit, but you're gonna have to cram it. So going through like kind of like a dry run ahead of time to make that video better would probably be my first step in how to kind of improve this series. But like I said, we had a blast building it. While it did take 7 hours to complete, it was a blast. I learned a lot. I found out, a ton of stuff about the inner workings of a computer and, just the different overall makeup of what goes into one. Something that I had no clue about. I watched YouTube videos and, had a good understanding, but like until you get physically into a computer case and you're plugging things in and turning screws for yourself, and that stuff that you can't live that stuff through a YouTube video. Someone can't show you how to do it. You have to actually do it before you can truly appreciate it, believe me. So I do want to give a couple shout outs for this build. Before I actually started building, actually put this build together on PC Part Picker, which is a fantastic website. If you're planning on building something any computer, whatever budget you have, definitely check this website out. If for nothing else, it helps you save money because it basically checks every major outlet for the best price possible for the components. Other than that, they give you user reviews. You can see other things like people actually building inside this case or using this graphics card or whatever. They have pictures and things like that. The other thing that it's nice that it's amazing for is compatibility and being able to see, okay, if I use this GPU, is it going to be compatible with this motherboard and compatible with this CPU? Like, there's a lot of interworking things. The one thing that I wish I paid a little bit more close attention to was the actual dimensions of the case, which are included on PC Part Picker, and how the radiator was going to fit. Had I done that, I might have made a different choice in a couple different configurations, because in this particular loadout, the actual radiator and fans won't fit in the top part of the case. There's just not enough room between the top of the case and the top of the RAM. So I might have made a different choice on the RAM. I might have made a different choice in the fans. It could be any number of things. Again, if I had to pay attention to that type of dimensions and that type of material that's listed on PC Part Picker, it might have saved us a little bit of time during the build, because we could have had a couple different options when it comes to placing the radiator. Just a small example, but again, huge shout out to PC Part Picker. It's an amazing site. I used it for every step of the way for this build, swapping out parts and changing things around and trying to find the best bang for the buck while still staying with the aesthetic that I was going for. So I really want to give another shout out to one of my buddies at work, Robbie. He took a look at the list after I had it, like kind of where I thought I wanted to be. He made a couple suggestions, a couple changes, recommendations, and things like that. For example, I was going to stick with the stock cooler in my original build to save some money on cooling. However, he recommended, if you're going to be pushing this thing into a 4K realm, you're probably going to want a liquid cooler or an AIO. And I took the advice. It was good advice. So I really do appreciate his overall input in helping, select the parts for this PC. So what was the scariest part about building this computer? Like I said, first time putting something like this together, by far the scariest part was installing the CPU. Having a $300, $350 piece of equipment that's between two fingers, and if you insert it and break a pin, it's done. So let me tell you, there was a little bit of shaking in there, and just, I had to pull back and just take a deep breath, and then once it inserts, you're like, oh, okay, and you got to give it that little wiggle, and it doesn't shift. You're like, okay, I think we're in there. And then that long drawn out push down of the actual tension arm is just like, okay, I think we got it. And the scary part of the whole, that process doesn't stop there, because now you're thinking oh God, this is the first thing that we did to this machine. We won't know if we screwed it up until the very end. So what are some of my favorite aspects or physical aspects of this actual build? The first thing is I absolutely love the RGB aspect of this. We've got two 120mm fans up front on our Corsair rad, and then we've got the Corsair water block lights up, and then the RAM, and then there's also a little bit of LED lighting on the actual graphics card, and then back on the motherboard. I absolutely love this. I think it looks really sharp. The other thing that I really enjoy about the whole build itself is the color scheme. Going with a white case and white components, and there's some black in there, the black-white build, essentially. The nice thing about it is the RGB in it, I can pretty much make any color across the board, and it'll have some type of theme. I settled on the blue. I really like the color scheme between the black, white, and blue. I feel like it's really good. It kind of gives that really cool aspect to it. So yeah, that's one of the main things that I really enjoy about it. The glass pane is nice. It's crystal clear, makes everything very visible. For a long time, I've been working with it with the actual cover on, and it was you couldn't really appreciate it. And you pull off that film, and you can actually see the components, and just looks really good. It's really kind of breathtaking, to be honest with you. The other thing, kind of going along the same lines with the RGB aspect of it, is the Corsair iCUE software. That's top notch. Like the AuraSync is pretty good. I'll give them that, but the actual software that Corsair makes, like giving you like thousands of different options. It's it's amazing. The one complaint that I have about it is when the system goes to sleep, sometimes it won't, the actual preset that I've got selected here will kind of disappear and it'll go to the default rainbow. That's the one thing that kind of bugs me a little bit. I haven't really done a lot of research to figure out how to get that to stop. I know you can do it, but that's probably the one thing that I dislike, is when the computer falls asleep, it goes to the rainbow vomit unicorn colors, and I don't really care for that. So if it was up to me, I would probably change it from like blue like this to maybe just an all-out red. I don't know, it might look neat. So who knows? The other thing that I love about it is just how quiet it is. I mean, I've got a microphone literally like a foot away from it, and it's not, I can't tell that it's picking it up. At least it's not on the camera, it's not picking it up. But I can't tell if you guys can hear it or not, but it is super quiet. Obviously it's just on the desktop right now, but like nothing's happening. But like when I'm gaming, obviously you got headphones on, so I can't really tell if it's, if it ramps up or anything like that. But when I'm video editing, it's this the whole time. Absolutely the whole time. Like whisper quiet, which is nice. And that's something that the other PC didn't have. Like that thing, when that thing got heated up, like those fans, you could hear those fans. So one of the last things that I really enjoy about this build is the expandability, and the ability to pick a certain setup and say, okay, at some point down the line, I want to upgrade this part, and then I'm going to upgrade this part, and then I want to add this, and being able to build your own PC versus buying for gaming purposes versus buying a console is, once you buy the console, you're done. It's done. Like, save the the upgrade, mid life cycle of the console. There's really nothing you can do to increase that gaming console's performance. With the PC, on the other hand, hey, you know what? I'd like to be able to, edit 4K drone footage and be a little bit more responsive, a little bit more snappy. I'm going to be using DaVinci Resolve, so I'm going to need a faster CPU. So being able to just take that one part, pull it out, and put in a new CPU to get that functionality is phenomenal. Now, keep in mind, making those upgrades is expensive because, they're not cheap, right? But you can sell that CPU that's in there, and then it retains its value a lot better than the actual video game console. I appreciate the upgradability and just kind of the way the system can kind of grow with how you need to use it. So what was, overall, what was my favorite part of this whole process, this whole series? And I mean, to be honest with you, I have to say building this PC with my dad was by far the best thing. I know it might sound sappy, but it's something that I wanted to learn how to do. I wanted to spend some time with Dad, and I wanted to be able, to do it right. And ultimately, it was a lot of fun. It was something that I'll never forget. And I've got video of it, and it was just a blast, and that was, the whole day was just perfect from start to finish. How does the system work? How has it been working for me under the current, loads that I've been running it on, and what have I been using it for? So originally, before I get into that, originally I was going to hold off on using this system until I finished my 2019, editing block. To tell you the truth, I should have, as soon as this thing was finished, I should have switched over that day. I was hesitant to do so because I wanted to hold off for a couple different reasons. Mainly because I didn't want to have to switch and learn a newer version of DaVinci. I wanted to keep editing on what I knew because I felt like trying to learn a newer version would have taken more time than the slower computer, it's a slower computer, right? So that was kind of like my rationale for not upgrading. I didn't want to worry about new program, new system, stuff like that. I just wanted to finish my editing log on this computer. This looks pretty, and I'll use this for gaming for now, but let's finish editing on this one. Well, that worked for about a month, and after like the fourth or fifth time of the system crashing in the middle of an edit and losing, minutes, hours of my actual video, I was like, no, I'm done. We're done with this. We're gonna power this thing on. I'm gonna power through it, and I should have done it sooner. The upgraded software is pretty much in line with the older version. I don't know what I was so afraid of. It's not like going from DaVinci to Premiere where you have to learn a whole new system. It was going from DaVinci 12, I think is what I was running, to DaVinci 16. So there was a significant jump in versions, but with that significant jump came better tools, better options, more options, to be honest with you, and just an all-around better experience because the system wasn't crashing. There was no fear of the system crashing. I wasn't having to take time out of the edit to hit Control Save and wait 2 to 3 seconds for it to save. Okay, now I can edit again. Needless to say, I made the switch. This thing was built in October. I probably made the switch mid-November, maybe late November. It didn't take long, to be honest with you. So from a video editing aspect, this thing has knocked it out of the park. Couple examples: I can edit drone footage now, which is great. I can have multiple levels of video overlapping. I can have multiple audio signals and things like that without having to worry about any type of response issues or anything. I have transitions that I can use now, which is great. I mean, the one thing I will say about the old PC was, I had to use jump cuts, and I had to use them appropriately. That sharpened my camera skills greatly. Being able to say, okay, there's going to be a cut here. I need to make sure that I film up to that point and then past it, and make sure that I've got something to cut to. So it definitely kept me on my feet as far as a videographer on site, but being able to edit with this thing and use transitions as kind of more of a creative outlet, it makes it, having that extra option just makes it better, right? And that's not to say that I use a transition in every clip, from one to the next. That's not the case. I'm still using jump cuts, but having the option to say, this right here, these two clips would look so much better if it was more of a crossfade or a fade to black, and then, or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of my 2 cents, is the editing process is so much better. Now let's talk about the render process. Rendering the same clip, the same 10-minute vlog, let's say, single line of video, 2 audio sources, so the audio for the actual video, and then the intro music, so 2 audio levels, so 2 audio layers, right? Something like that, 10 minutes long, 1080p, would probably take my old system somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes to render from start to finish. And that's saying that it doesn't crash in that time frame. On the other hand, this PC, 5 minutes. 5 minutes or less. 5 minutes or less. That's insane. I can be done editing a video, render it, turn around and watch it, make notes on edits that need to be made, start making those edits before the old PC finishes rendering the first time. You know how much time that saved me in the past 4 wedding videos? A lot. An absolute ton. I don't know how to explain it. There was times where I would finish a wedding ceremony and say, well, ceremony was about an hour long. It's going to take about 2 hours to render. I'm just going to hit render and I walk away. 9 times out of 10, I'm editing at night. I'm just going to hit render and go to bed. And pray to God that it doesn't crash. Pray. Flat out pray. Okay, please just let this finish so I can continue editing tomorrow. Because if I wake up the next morning, and this is how it would go, I'd wake up the next morning and if it's crashed, like, okay, well, I just got to start it again, and then I go to work, come home from work hoping that it doesn't crash. And the thing is, like, it doesn't happen often. Like, I'm kind of over exaggerating a little bit, but there were those times where, you know, it would crash and I'd have to start all over again. But most definitely, I would hit render and go do something else. To be honest with you, I do this with this one too, but that's out of force of habit. Now on the gaming side of things, I really haven't had a chance to push it to its limits. I'm still playing everything in 1080p, which you might look at the PC and say, wow, that's a little overkill for 1080 gaming. And that's only because it's a limitation on my monitor. That's one of the things that I do need to upgrade sometime in the future. Is something I would like to get a 4K monitor and just kind of make the jump and just do it. But chances are I'm probably going to have to go to a 1440 first, like, to be perfectly honest with you. So some of the games that I have been playing on it are like Borderlands 3, Fortnite, The Outer Worlds, Magic Arena, stuff that's really not too graphic intensive. But still, I mean, it takes it like a champ. I don't experience any issues, any notable issues. And the ones that I do see are like kind of screen tearing. That's because of the cheap monitors. To be honest with you, like, I'm really kind of curious what the gaming performance is going to be like once I upgrade those monitors, and that's kind of, maybe that's a follow-up video for this. We'll see. I'm not sure. So yeah, so I think, you know, one of the next upgrades for this is going to be the monitor, right? So I have a monitor that matches the system, but you know, that's another purchase. So we'll see. We'll stick with what we've got for now. What we've got right now is working fine. And I'm just going to ease into, you know, going up that step ladder. So let's talk about upgrades. Everyone's kind of thinking, like, what kind of upgrades are you talking about? You know, you talked about monitors and, you know, different CPU, different GPU and stuff like that. What kind of upgrades and expansions are you planning to do with this computer? Let's start with aesthetics first. We'll set performance and power. We'll set that aside. Let's just worry about aesthetics first. Number one, the cables. So let me kind of preface this a little bit. I purchased a Corsair power supply. This is the RM750X, and in white, for two reasons. First, white build, white power supply, right? Should be fine. That's what I want. The only part of the power supply that you can physically see is on the back. And you can, if you look real close and get, you know, at a certain angle, you can see through the slits on the power supply shroud and see just a little bit of white. Just a little bit. Now, I don't think I paid more for the white version than the black version, but if you have to pay more just to get this back part white, it's probably not worth your money. What you can do, and what I would suggest, is the second part of why I bought this power supply, and that's the white cables. I was like, hey, you know what? I'll buy the white power supply. It'll match the system, right? It comes with white cables, so I won't have to buy premium, professionally sleeved cables, right? Well, I was wrong. Nothing against Corsair, you know, their power supply, their cables work fantastic. Haven't had a problem yet. Knock on wood. But the cables are not very pretty. You've kind of got a couple different materials going here, and it just doesn't look concise. So you've kind of got like this outer mesh that's holding all the cables together. Then you've got like this white shrink wrap that's holding onto half of that and half of the cables, and then you got the cables coming out, and they're just not, like, you know, uniform. The large connector at the top, the 24-pin connector, is just a mess. Like, there's just cables going everywhere. It just looks like spaghetti. The 8-pin connector at the top, you really can't tell too bad. You can't tell too much. It's really hidden well, especially with this fan up here. So you can only see just a small portion of it. So I wouldn't actually consider changing that one out. These two I will definitely be changing out. Using somebody like CableBot or somebody like that where I can pick a couple of, a set of colors for, each one of these pins. And then they've got cable combs to make sure that you can like manage the cables to a certain way and they look uniform. So I think that's going to be like the first aesthetic thing that I take care of. So the other thing that I want to upgrade is the case fans. The Meshify 2 from Fractal, it's a great case. The fans are fantastic. They're super quiet. But after seeing what Corsair does with their software and their lighting, like, I want one here, and then these two up here I want replaced. I think overall it'll give a little bit more light illuminating inside the actual case itself. It'll highlight a little bit more of the motherboard because you really don't have much light in this corner. You've got two fans here and the RAM, so it's you've got this nice glow from here, but once you get to this side of things, it's just dark. So definitely upgrading, and I say upgrading very loosely, definitely upgrading those fans to an RGB fan to kind of give an overall concise feel of the actual build. It's not going to improve performance at all. Like I said, not performance, aesthetic only. Kind of stepping away from like how it looks a little bit and stepping more into the performance side of things. I want to upgrade the M.2 SSD that I purchased. Yeah, so for this build I bought a 1 terabyte Western Digital M.2 drive, and it always used a regular mechanical drive, right? A regular drive. I've always used one of those. So this does run faster for sure. It's great. I love it. But I want to go a little bit faster. I want a little bit more space as well. So right now I'm editing mostly on the actual hard drive in the back, the mechanical drive. And you could definitely tell like when you're editing and things like that, where like when you click on something and it takes a solid 2-3 seconds for 4 seconds for it to actually load that clip and start playing. I think if we got an NVMe type of storage, we would have a little bit better response time when editing. So I think what we'll probably do is we'll update that. So the other two performance upgrades that I definitely want to make is I want to get 2 more sticks of 16 gigs each, so 32 gigs more of RAM. This will help with video editing and gaming and things like that, and kind of getting ready and prepared for that step into 4K. Right now we're running 32 gigs, so getting another 2 sticks to link in there. Again, aesthetically pleasing. Having those extra 2 sticks in there would look nice. But again, performance side of things, that's definitely where I want to head. This was kind of like a stepping stone for now, and then with the intent to go to 64 later on down the line. The last thing I want to upgrade in this system, for the foreseeable future at least, is the CPU. If you remember in the original video, I think I talked about how I had to make a compromise because the Ryzen 9 the Ryzen 9 3900X was not available. It was sold out everywhere. So I had to make a compromise and go to the 3700, which is not what I wanted to do. But at the end of the day, I had all these parts sitting on my desk waiting to be built, and I mean it was probably about a month that had gone by that I was like, okay, you know what? Screw it. We're just gonna get the CPU that's available, and we'll upgrade later. So we went out and bought the 3700X. And since then, the 3950X has come out. Significantly more expensive. You're talking about a $700 to $750 CPU versus a $400 CPU. So a little bit of a price jump there. I've got like this phase thing set in my mind of how this upgrade's going to go. So phase 1 is going to be cables, fan, and NVMe. Those are the 3 things that I want to upgrade first. You're looking at probably about a $300 to $400 upgrade to get all those things, fitted into this case. So the actual cables themselves are probably going to be about 60 to 80 bucks. The NVMe drive, depending on where you go and what you buy, you're probably looking at somewhere around $150 to $200 for at least 1 terabyte. So with the Corsair fans, getting the 3-pack, I believe, is like 120 bucks. So like I said, somewhere between $300 to $400 for that upgrade. The phase 2 is going to be the memory upgrade, so another 32 gig kit from Corsair is going to run about $170. Phase 3, new processor, like I said, 750. And then the last phase, phase 5, which will complete this whole thing, I want to upgrade the GPU, and I want to hardline custom water cool the whole thing. Don't know how much that's going to cost, but that's my end game. But that's way, way down the line. The first 3 upgrades, those are probably, I would like to make those within the next year, the next 4 quarters. Just, you know, like I said, incremental upgrades, and that's kind of where I'm hoping to go with this system. All right, guys, so that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value out of it. If you did, make sure you leave me a thumbs up. Normally about this time I would say something like, if you liked what you saw and you want to see more, leave a comment. I don't know how many more PC builds we're going to do. To tell you the truth, we already did another one, so which is great. I felt so confident in what I learned here, I built one with my son. So built one with my dad, learned how to do it, turned around, and me and my son Eli, we built him a new computer. And he's been gaming on it like a madman. So again, another nice thing to do if I don't want to sell off, you know, these individual parts, I can definitely pass them down to him and then sell his off. And that would be a nice upgrade for him as well. So again, I had a blast documenting this journey, building this computer, planning it out, actually physically building it, and then turning around and using it for the past 5-6 months. It's been a blast. I've enjoyed every step of the way. It got a little tense there when we were building it, trying to figure out the configurations, but at the end of the day, I believe it came together. I really, really enjoy it. There's a few things like we talked about earlier that I would kind of change around and, you know, would have done differently, but at the end of the day, you know, it works fantastic. And, you know, aesthetics aside, there's a couple, like those couple things that I would change. It works so much better than what I had, and that was the ultimate goal. So I really want to hear from you guys. Have you built your own PC before? If you haven't, what's holding you back? I'm kind of curious. If you have built your own PC, what's your favorite part about the actual build itself, about physically building the computer? What kind of PC have you put together? Kind of curious. Leave those comments down below, and we will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.